But I'd like to tell you a little bit about Heather. I first met Heather, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago? I don't know, 8 years ago? I'm not sure. Back when I was just early in my role here, she was a speaker for the Sprouts, which was our young moms group, and I just immediately recognized a couple things about her. She's a woman who loves Jesus and follows the Lord in her life passionately. She's incredibly intelligent. She's very deep in wisdom and discernment. I still remember that first talk. It was about how to navigate transitions in your life. I've never forgotten it. Just the beautiful way in that she was able to speak to young moms about how to just navigate the transition from being a single woman, a married woman, a young mom, and then on from there. And it really resonated with me. Even at the time of the transitions I was going through in my life. And she's just a person I really highly respect. Over the years, she's been one of my favorite people to refer women to who are looking for a deeper connection with a counselor, a therapist. She specializes in marriage family therapy and counseling. She's also a coach. She works in the corporate world, coaching individuals in the corporate world. She just has a really vast background. She just got her doctorate this last year. She's just a really, really incredible woman, a woman of faith and a woman of incredible competence. And it's just a joy and a privilege to get to welcome her. Personally, I'll tell you, she's been married 36 years to her husband. She has 3 children, 24, 25, and 27. She says that the 20s is a little bit challenging, I think, as her kids are adventurous, as I'm sure she trained them up well, and they're out enjoying the world. And she says she's spending a lot of time on her knees, praying for them as they're finding themselves. So it's with great joy to welcome this morning Heather Harrison. Come on up, Heather.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you for inviting me here today, and I am going to invite you really into a conversation about what it means to live in freedom. When Marianne asked me to speak, she said, "Heather, I just want you to speak about what's on your heart." And I said, wow, okay. What's on my heart are many things, but primarily, I have this belief that we have 2 choices in this lifetime. We can continue to learn and grow, or we can stagnate and die. Not physical death, but emotional, mental, and spiritual death. And so for the last 35 years, I've been involved with the fields of learning, growth, and development, whether that's been in corporate America, teaching leadership and management classes, working with leaders and teams, helping them be effective, whether that's rearing 3 kids under 3, or whether that's stepping into the world of therapy and counseling. I have a deep curiosity about how do we learn and how do we make change in our life? And as I sit with people day in and day out, I'm noticing how stuck we've become. And I really think that the epidemic that we're facing right now is one of anxiety. Literally within the last 2 weeks, I've had moms call and say, "Will you see my 8-year-old kid? He's so anxious." I've had teachers come in and say, "Heather, you have no idea about the anxiety levels of kindergartners, of 7th graders. It's off the charts. It's like nothing we've ever seen." And last week, I had an 82-year-old man call and ask if I would be a therapist for him. And think about that. That's a post-World War II male seeking counseling. And so to me, this is really the conversation that we need to begin to have, is what's causing that anxiety and what can we do to lessen that anxiety and live out of freedom? And as I've thought about this a lot and sat with many people and many stories, if I had to peel back the layers under anxiety, the one that I think is predominant is one of shame. And shame sends us this message that I am not enough. So I want to talk today about what it means to be emotionally healthy and how do we live not in shame, but out of freedom. Now, this may be a little bit different format than you're used to when you have a speaker. I want you not to leave with information. I don't want you to leave with solutions, and I don't really want you to leave with an answer. I want you to leave with at least one question that keeps you curious for the next week. I want you to leave with an experience that doesn't just rest in your head, but rests somewhere in your heart and your body. And I would love if each of us could leave with one piece of awareness. Because I know that actually awareness and acceptance is not complacency. It's not, I don't want to make a change, but rather awareness and acceptance is a prerequisite for any creative transformational change. And I'm pretty sure that all of us in this room have anxiety to some degree or another about something, and that all of us in this room have a piece of niggling shame somewhere that says, I'm not enough in this area. And if we can become more aware, more curious, and more accepting of ourselves, I can guarantee you that you will begin a process of transformational change. So, to do that, we are going to talk about what is emotional health. We're going to talk about the impact of anxiety and shame. And we're going to talk about this concept called the window of tolerance. So, what is emotional health? And as I read this definition, I want you to just begin thinking about what is my emotional health. And it's interesting because if I asked you how in shape you are, you could probably tell me how physically fit you are. But if I ask people, what's your level of emotional health? Oftentimes, they're not really sure. So here's a definition. Emotional health is a positive sense of well-being, which enables us to function in society and meet the demands of everyday life. So positive sense of well-being, I can meet the demands of everyday life. Emotional health is manifested by high levels of awareness. Awareness of feelings, of weaknesses, limits, how the past impacts our present, and how others experience us. So we're back to that concept of awareness. When we are aware and we can accept, then change can start. Good emotional health enables us to recover effectively from change and gives us the capacity to enter into the feelings and perspectives of others. The healthier we are, the more we can enter into the worlds of others in a healthy way. And I like this quote, the way you treat your own heart is the way you'll end up treating everybody else's. If I could have $1 for every woman that tells me, I hate myself, but I love others well, I would be a multimillionaire. We have this conception that we can sit in shame with ourselves, but somehow, if I'm sitting with Judy, I can connect with her and give her all the love. But the fact is, we're like oranges. If you have an orange and you squeeze it, you get orange juice, right? Because that's what's in the orange. If you have yourself and you're filled with shame and anxiety and you squeeze you, that's also what you're giving out to others. So that's why I would argue that our emotional health is extremely important, not only to ourselves, but to everybody that comes in contact with us. The reason that, to me, information is not that important to leave with is because I don't think information is scarce. Truly, if I said pick up your phones and look up anxiety and shame, you all in 5 minutes could talk about it with lots of data and information. But what is scarce is connection. Connection with God, connection with ourselves, and connection with others. And I think that is one of the most scarce things we have going right now. So emotional health enables us to connect with ourselves so that we can connect with others. Psychologically, now theologically, being able to connect with God so that we can connect with ourselves and others, which, by the way, I understand from Mary Ann is the theme for the river this year. Connection to God, His Word, and others. I'm going to show you 9 qualities of what it means to be emotionally healthy. And I notice you have pens on your tables. So, I don't know, napkin, you use the back of your napkin, or if somebody has a notebook at your table, or you pull out your phone. What I want you to do, I'm going to read through these, and I want you to begin assessing how emotionally healthy am I right now? So these are the qualities of emotional health. I'm going to read through them, and then you can go back and read through them and just assess for yourself. You can give yourselves a thumb up, a neutral thumb, or a thumbs down. 1, I'm able to ask for what I need, want, or prefer clearly, directly, and honestly. I can ask for what I need, want, or prefer. 2, I can recognize, manage, and take responsibility for my own thoughts and feelings. 3, I can, when under stress, state my own beliefs and values without becoming adversarial. 4, I respect others without having to change them. 5 is I give room people to make mistakes and not be perfect. 6, I appreciate people for who they are, not for what they give back. 7, I accurately assess my own limits, strengths, and weaknesses, and I'm able to freely discuss them with others. 8, I am deeply in tune with my own emotional world, and I'm able to enter into the feelings, needs, and concerns of others without losing myself. And 9, I have the capacity to resolve conflict maturely and negotiate solutions that consider the perspective of others. So take a moment and scale of 10 to 1. 10 high, I knock this out of the park. 1, I've got a lot of room to grow in this one. Number your paper or put the numbers on your phone and just rate yourself on each of those. When you're done, I want you to turn to your neighbor, just one other person at your table, and I want you to share one thing that you do really well and one of them that you would like to grow in. So it doesn't need to be your whole table, just your neighbor, partner up, one thing you do well and one area you'd like to grow in.
Hi, nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
I'm working officially, but I was like, I gotta come listen to Heather. So I'm on call, so hopefully I won't get buzzed, but
Oh,
yeah.
we're just looking
I'm
at
taking
how
pictures.
emotionally healthy we are.
Yeah, all good.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So good to see you. Okay, I'm going to have you wrap up your conversation and come back to the group at large. Again, I'll have you wrap up your conversation here and come back to the group at large. Okay. We're gonna get more time to talk, I promise you. But for right now, we're gonna wrap up the conversation and come back to the group at large here. This is always a really interesting balance, isn't it? Is between creating a conversation with 125 women and being able to move the conversation forward. So at the end of this time, you actually will have time around your tables to continue the conversation. And I have some questions for reflection. One of them will be this one, again, sharing. What do you do well? Where do you want to grow? And what I find helpful and interesting is finding someone that does well the area you want to grow and just asking them, what's behind that? How do you do it? How did you learn it? And I realize, too, this conversation is really broad today. We could spend the next hour easily talking just about this. But I want to give kind of some broad context so that you have questions of curiosity that you leave with and can continue the conversation. This comes out of Peter Scazzaro's work on emotionally healthy spirituality. If you want to read more, he's got great work out there. And he ascertains we cannot be spiritually healthy unless we're emotionally healthy too. So, again, I have the privilege of working with lots of different people in this world, whether it's from a role, a leadership coaching role, or it's a therapeutic role, and really across all age spans. And what I began to become curious about, because I work with a lot of Christians and a lot of Christians who are leaders, I began to become curious about why is it that we as Christians sit in so much anxiety. You know, Jesus invites us in 365 times in the Bible to practice not worrying, to practice being connected to Him. And yet, time after time, it didn't matter what they did, who they were, there was just tremendous anxiety among Christians. And so, as Marianne said, I just recently completed my doctorate, and what I did my dissertation on is managing anxiety among Christian leaders. And I looked at it from a perspective of positive psychology and emotional intelligence. I interviewed and I ran focus groups with Christian leaders ages 25 to 70, multi-ethnic groups, as well as non-Christian leaders. And what I found, a couple of the things that I found is, one, is that Christians and non-Christians live in the same level of anxiety. Those who follow Christ are living no less anxious lives than those who don't follow Christ. It's like, that's curious. Now, we know that 31% of us at some point in our lives are going to have a generalized an anxiety disorder of some sort. So that's a third of the population. It's extremely prevalent. 40 million Americans today are suffering from anxiety. It's one of the highest prescribed medications. But still, I was curious to find that there really is no significant difference, at least in the groups that I interviewed and did focus groups with, if you're Christian or non-Christian. But what I found even more curious is what caused anxiety. So for these Christian leaders, what caused anxiety was relationships and shame. For non-Christians, it was the scope of their job and the ability to get their job done. So when I talk about relationships and shame, these are some of the things that were direct quotes of what they were anxious about. They're anxious about hurting others, being misunderstood, wanting approval from others, fearing losing connection with others. And from a shame perspective, they believe they're not good enough, smart enough, and do not know enough. Okay? So that was the number one cause of anxiety, which was not any different between Christians and non-Christians, that caused anxiety among Christian leaders. And to me, this just reiterated kind of my gut sense that shame is the biggest piece of the biggest layer that exists under anxiety. So that's why I think we all need to become aware how it's in our life, accept it so that we can change, because we are all leaders. Every one of us in this room is a leader in some way, shape, or form. Whether we're leading ourselves, leading our children, leading our neighborhood, leading in the workplace, we are leading somewhere. So let me share a couple direct quotes from the interviews and focus groups. And I just want you to see to what extent you see yourself in these stories, because we often do see ourselves in other people's story. Here's one from a pastor. They said, I don't think it's common to find anxious people who like themselves. Anxiety creates a lot of shame, fear, and weakness inside, and I resonate with that. When I feel anxious, I feel weak. When I share my hurt, and when it does not go away, it makes me feel like I'm not doing it right. When this happens, I experience guilt that is packed with shame, and I hear myself saying, if I was just better, I'd overcome this, and then God would say, oh good, you're a good boy. Here's another quote that comes from a business person. When I'm in seasons of depression and anxiety, I experience tremendous self-hatred. I don't know why I can't allow my head, heart, and body to know better. I believe if I'm hard on myself, then no one else can be harder on me. Here's a father of young kids. He says, I hate myself. What could I do differently? Here's a mom of young kids. Inside my head, I'm filled with hatred. I'm so hard on myself, and sometimes it comes out on others. A couple more. Here's a missionary, an international missionary. She says, I'm so critical of myself. I'm always evaluating what I'm doing and what I'm saying all of the time. And then here's another person that works in a large corporation here. She says, I take in cues, I assess them as good or bad, and then I believe I should do all the goods, and I'm trapped in anxiety. So what we're talking about here in all these shame-based messages is I'm not enough. Anxiety keeps me trapped. Shame tells me I'm not enough. And the simple definition is just that, I'm not enough. Guilt is I didn't do enough. Shame is I'm not enough. Brene takes it a little further. She says it's an intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. So let's talk for a minute here. When we live in shame, what happens? When you experience shame, what do you see yourself doing? What do you see yourself saying? Pardon me? If only. If only. Okay? If only I had. Okay, I should. Yeah. That you know right away you're living in shame. Every time you hear I should, you're shoulding all over yourself. Isolation, yes. It drives isolation, doesn't it? If I'm not enough, I'm just going to stay inside. Try harder, yes. Yeah. Always striving, never arriving, right? If I just do one more thing, but you never arrive. Yeah. It's exhausting, isn't it? Put up fences? Yes, another way to isolate, right? Maybe we're not isolated in a house, but we're putting up fences or walls that we isolate against any sort of attachment or vulnerability. There was another one back there? No. Okay. Constantly apologizing. Yeah. I didn't. This too shall pass. Okay. That sounds like more of a helpful way, perhaps. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. They feel guilty. Yeah. Yeah. So that guilt and shame you often see go together, right? I feel bad about what I'm doing. I feel bad about who I am. I feel bad about who I am, so I feel bad about what I'm doing. Yeah. What about comparison, right? Comparison drives shame, right? Huge. I'm going to look out there and see what they're doing. Oh, that's better than what I'm doing. Oh, I should be doing that. Yeah. Any other things that happens when you live in shame or when you see others live in shame? Rationalization.
It's not really my fault.
Okay. It's not my fault. If only I did it this way. Yeah, we go into that rational mind. Yep.
I would say dishonesty, especially with others.
Oh, yeah, dishonesty with others. Yeah, which is what we, that's why we build our fences and walls, right? So that we don't have to be honest. Don't see me and, dishonesty. Sadness. Yeah, it's a painful place to be. It's a painful place to be. Yeah. Yeah. Anger. Yep. Sadness is one of a primary emotion, and it escalates to anger, which is a secondary emotion. So you often see that. Yeah. Withdrawal. Yep. Another way to isolate, wall up, withdrawal. Addiction, absolutely. Here we have a social worker who I'm sure sits with lots of addiction. Yes, because we want to medicate. We want to medicate that painful, painful feeling. And we do it in lots of different ways, right? Drug, sex, rock and roll. But we also do it in work. Workaholism is the only addiction that we think is kind of okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yep, that false self, that fake front, which leads me to one I see a lot of is perfectionism, right? Perfection. If I look perfect and my house looks perfect and my kids look perfect, then let me tell you, perfectionism always points back to shame. Always points back to shame. So you look in your life where you're trying to be perfect, and I guarantee you it's out of a sense of something's not enough. Okay. So clearly it's something that we've all experienced. It's something that drives behavior. It drives tough emotions. It drives isolation. It drives things like perfectionism and achieving and trying harder that absolutely leave us exhausted, right? I mean, just exhausted. And as moms, when we do it for ourselves and then we try to make our children do it, it's just exhausting. So I want to pause for a moment and talk about what's actually happening neurologically. When all this is happening emotionally and behaviorally, what's going on neurologically? And this is a nanosecond. So for all of you healthcare professionals out there who have more information on this, share it at your tables, because this is just a nanosecond of understanding our brain. So 3 main parts here. That brain stem, the most ancient part of our brain, is always looking out to say, am I safe? Now think about it. If we live in this shame-based place, it's like, no, I'm not safe. My car's not right. My kids aren't right. I'm not right. And then we have the limbic system, and that's the amygdala, and it's asking the questions, is this good? Is this bad? Am I loved? This is our emotional regulation center where we feel our emotions. It's when we're living out of that shame and we feel sadness and we feel anger. That's the limbic system. And then there's a prefrontal cortex. Can I learn? Can I regulate? So this is the hippocampus area, the frontal cortex. This is where we make our executive decision making is happening. And this is where we want to live out of, but when we're living out of anxiety and shame, we're constantly triggered by all of these things that hijack the limbic system and cause us to do a couple different things. So we have this sympathetic nervous system, which increases our cortisol and increases our adrenaline and makes us ready to fight or flight or fawn, okay? And this is what happens when we're overwhelmed with adrenaline. Our heart is racing. We're physically shaking. We have an urge to move. We might be angry. We might feel out of control, anxious, need to over-accommodate or please people, okay? So this is great. That limbic system, that brain stem, are ancient parts of our brain. When we were cave women and that lion was coming at us, we needed that sympathetic nervous system to come in so that we could move. But as a client last week told me, I thought this was just funny. She said, Heather, I realized she's battling weight. And she said, I realized I look at pizza as though it is a lion and not just a little carbohydrate and a little dairy on top. It's a lion coming at me. And so when we get stuck in that hyper-arousal, we are not living in freedom, right? And shame can easily get us there. The parasympathetic nervous system is the rest and digest, but when we sense danger, it too will go into overdrive and it will cause us to freeze. So the isolation, the withdrawal, the sluggish, depressed, foggy, paralyzed, numb, shut down, get disconnected. So either one of those places, we're living again not in freedom, not in peace, right? Not in contentment. So the good news is we have this window of tolerance, and this comes out of Daniel Siegel's work on neurobiology. And our window of tolerance is this place of arousal where we can function well. In this place, in this window of tolerance, we have this sense of strength and competence. And I wish I could read back there, but my eyes are not doing that. We're curious and we're relaxed. And you can just begin to feel what it feels like to be in this place. Balanced, able to make rational decisions, hopeful, able to take risks without feeling totally overwhelmed, peaceful. Okay? So this is where we want to go, because this is where freedom to live in the self that God has created you to be exists. Juxtaposed with this anxiety, shame-based, always striving, never arriving place that leaves us either in the hyperarousal or the hypoarousal place. So I want to talk a little bit about the window of tolerance and then just pause and see what questions this brings up for you. So what are our windows of tolerance? Again, they're a space where where intense emotional arousal can be processed in a healthy way, allowing us to function and to respond to anxiety effectively. Okay, they're the place where our frontal cortex links with that limbic system, connects like parent to child to calm down that system so that we can make a rational decision. All of our windows of tolerance differ in sizes, but the good news is they can all expand. And once you begin digesting this and it becomes in your own vernacular, you can begin asking yourself, how big is my window of tolerance right now? What's causing me to go into hyper or hypoarousal? Our window of tolerance becomes narrow when we've constantly suppressed our own emotions in order to keep others happy, which makes it less able to manage what life throws at us. Okay, let me read that one again because it's really important. I see a lot of women and a lot of Christian women in this place when we've constantly suppressed our own emotions in order to keep others happy, which makes us less able to manage whatever life throws at us. Okay? In the hyperarousal, we flight, we run, we fight. We tend to have a favorite one of these, and we fawn. Fawning has actually been added to this within the last couple of years, and fawning is that notion of I'm going to minimize danger by pleasing and accommodating. If I can please and accommodate, I'll minimize the danger. Okay? And when we do any of these, including pleasing and accommodating, our own window of tolerance becomes smaller, okay? So I want to pause here and just see what questions you have, what comments you have, and then we are going to, and we're going to be brief on this piece because I want to share 4 tools that allow us to begin growing and expanding our window of tolerance. Again, to keep us in this place where freedom and peace exists. Questions or comments on what's happening neurologically and what the window of tolerance is? Yeah, Denise.
Can we have a hyper-arousal with one relationship in our life and a hypo-arousal with other relationships?
Yeah. Can we be hypo and hyper aroused depending on different relationships? Yes. And depending on different times of the day, of the year, of the season, we can do both, and we all do both. Yeah. Generally, we have kind of a favorite. You know, you think to your mind, when I am triggered, am I likely to fight, run, codependent, fawn, or just curl up with Netflix and bonbons? We generally have a favorite way of responding, but we can do both. Yeah.
Hi, I know it probably takes a lot of therapy, but how do you expand your window? Are there viewpoints to put people in a direction to expand the window
So,
of tolerance?
yes, I'm going to share 4 different ways that we can expand it and connect back to the emotional healthy points. When we live, if you were a level 10, which I know is like Olympic level, but if you were a level 10 on all 9 of those points, you too would have a large window of tolerance. So there's a connection. The more emotionally healthy we are, the more our window of tolerance grows. And the reverse, the more we increase the window, the more our health. Yeah, good question. Yep.
Do you feel like you've seen the size of windows be similar within a family? Like, is this like a learned behavior or very individualized?
Oh, that's a great question. And there's a lot of nuance there. What I do know is that we as parents are leaders. Leaders are culture creators. We create the culture of that home. So if your window of tolerance is large, you are creating that space for others, and theirs are much more likely to be large. Thusly, anxiety is contagious, and we just know that when you're around someone anxious, they don't even have to tell you. You can just feel that, right? So we can only change ourselves. So the good news is when we increase ours, I can guarantee you it's going to have an impact on every other relationship in your family. Yeah. I know there was a question here and then one over here. Yeah.
I was just curious whether if a person, I know you said we can kind of do both things, hyper and hypo, but if you definitely tend to mostly lean one direction, does that tell you something about a person? Is that personality driven? Or what does that mean?
Yeah. Again, really good questions and multi-complex questions. The only job of a kid is to get to the next day. And so as a kid, we're going to develop strategies that help us or protect us to get to the next day. So depending on what is happening in your family, you may be likely to start operating out of one of those that allows you to get to the next day well. I had a super intelligent, dominant father who had outbursts. I learned really early how to fawn. Because when I could please and bring home good grades and I could appease, then he would come down. So that's an example of that. Yeah.
How do you know if you are aware or if you are in denial?
How do you know if you're aware or if you're in denial? Couple different ways. One, I would ask somebody that's extraordinarily close to you. In this specific situation, What do you experience? Awareness about my situation, that I'm aware or that I'm in denial? And then 2, of just really being able to get into your window of tolerance and honestly sit in a quiet place with God to say, show me.
So can I ask another question?
You sure can.
So if you believe someone extremely close to you is in denial,
Ah,
but doesn't believe they are,
ah.
what do you do?
Well, you can give him the feedback, him or her the feedback, and again, it's like I need more context to be able to answer it well, but we know we can't change others. We know we can give feedback. Feedback is always a gift. When someone gives you feedback, you can accept it, you can shelve it and wait for later, or you can take it back to the store. So that's what we can do for others. I see it this way, I see you seeing it this way. Would you consider sitting with that for a while? So, other questions? One more, and then I'm going to move on because I have like 12 more minutes, and then I will stay here, and if you have other questions, you can come and we can chat after this. Yeah.
I think pleasing and serving can be not only satisfying, but come from a good place. So how would one know if they're doing it in a healthy way or not in a healthy way? And plus, when people who are happy serving can be like, oh gosh, I need to like control this. No, I think it's a good thing.
And that's a great question. I'll answer it with a brief answer and then happy to expand on it. It's the why behind the serving and helping. I can serve and help from a rescuer perspective, looking for victims to serve and help so that I feel good about myself. And I can serve and help from a perspective that says, I'm going to ask you what your needs and wants are. And Jennifer, what do you need and want? And how can I help you, Kit? And I'm going to meet you where you're at, and I'm going to help you with your needs. It's about you, it's not about me. When I'm serving out of that rescuer mode and I'm looking for accolades and that a girl and fill up my juju and ego, not healthy. We all do it. We all do it. But it's asking the why behind the service. Yeah. Okay, let's try on a couple different tools here to expand our window of tolerance and see where we go from there. Okay, these are the 4 that I put up, and we'll see if we can do at least a couple of them. So we're going to start with the containment activity. So I want you to think about something in your life right now that's hard. One of those things that may leave you in that hyper or hypo-arousal place that keeps you stuck in it. I recently had a horrible experience that I wish on no one, a radically horrible medical diagnosis for one of my kids that I had to sit with for 2 weeks. If I had lived out of it, I would have literally been incapacitated. So it can be something big like that, or it can be like, God, I left home and my husband looked at me like that, and I'm still just sitting with that look. Think of something, you don't have to tell anybody, but just think about it. Get it in your mind, and then we're going to use this tool. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to picture something that's strong enough to hold the internal disturbance that you're feeling. And as you're picturing it, I actually want you to just close your eyes right now. If that's uncomfortable to you, you can just find something to focus on. But as you close your eyes, I want you to also take 3 deep breaths. So a deep breath in, counting for the count of 4, and then a long breath out. As you continue to breathe and continue to hold this thing that's causing you some level of pain, I want you to picture something that's big enough to hold it. It could be a treasure chest. It could be a safe. It could be the hands of God. Maybe it's a drawer in your house or a closet, something that's big enough to hold this internal disturbance. And as you are putting that internal piece in, that event in, I want you to take another breath and just notice where there's tension in your body. And as you breathe out and release that tension, I want you to see if wherever you've put this event, if it's holding it well enough. And if it's not, it might need a second layer. And by a second layer, I mean you might need to put a lock on the door. You might need to put chains around the treasure chest. So just allow yourself to notice, is this big enough and strong enough and secure enough to hold this event? And then take another deep breath again, noticing kind of toe to the top of your head, where there's tension in your body. So as you continue to breathe, notice that this container is strong enough and big enough and secure enough to hold this event. It doesn't mean that we're not going to come back to it, but it means that right now, this container can hold it for the time being. And when you're ready, take one more breath, noticing tension or lack thereof in your body, and then another breath out, releasing any of that tension. Okay. And then take one more breath and come back to the room. A couple observations. What was that like for you? Pardon me? Enlightening. Okay. How so?
Just made me think about when you were asking questions that brought to mind certain situations that I hadn't myself think about.
Okay. Okay. How about for others of you? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So think. Right. Right. Yes, yes. So very good. So this is not about stuffing. It's about setting it on the shelf in a secure, safe place so that I can be, again, open up my window a little bit, be in a more peaceful spot, even though junk is going on in my world. Because when we are trapped in that junk, then we're in that hypo anxious place. Okay? So this is one way that we can begin to expand that window, which again, that window is a place of freedom, place of peace and contentment. Okay? Yeah. Frightening. Okay. Yeah.
Cognitively knowing what the answer should be, especially in the house of God, but honestly not feeling it.
Okay. Okay. So a little shame there, a little shoulding on yourself. I should be able to put it here, but I can't. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Frightened. Okay. That there's no safe place. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so that's a piece of awareness for you, right? To say, I can't think of a safe place. And also a question of curiosity. Let me begin noticing where safe places are. Let me just begin noticing. Yeah.
Does it work if you just do one thing in the box, or can you do a whole lot?
Can you do one thing or a whole lot in the box? It depends on how big your box is, and it depends what works for you. Yeah. I tend to have a big box and it all goes in, but other people have smaller things and they put it in their smaller things. Yeah, good question. Yep.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry. For me, it just made me go to God and say, help me realize that you are my safe place.
Yeah.
That gives me comfort and peace.
Oh, okay.
Just knowing that He will take care of me
Yeah.
right where I am.
Oh, okay. So that I'm sensing that experiential knowing of, you're my safe place. I can dump it right here.
Right.
Okay.
And know that He will always be there.
Yeah.
Whereas if I put it in another safe place, I'm not sure that
Okay.
safe place
Yeah.
is always going to be there.
Yeah. Okay. And so noticing that's true for you. That's true for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel
Yeah.
blessed.
Yeah. Okay. And none of these, I want to take the right answer way out of the room. Noticing that's true for you is what's important. Again, I see other hands and I will be here and answer questions. I want to do a couple more. Yeah? Okay. A couple more. This next one is breathing. So breathing, 30 seconds of breathing changes our brain chemistry. Is that amazing? 30 seconds changes our brain chemistry. So there are a zillion different ways of breathing. There's 1,700 apps out there on breathing. Kid you not. This is one of them. So we're going to practice this. So you can choose a 2-syllable word. This particular example chooses Yahweh. So I'm going to have you close your eyes again or focus if that's uncomfortable. And we are going to practice this. So I want you to inhale through your nose with the word Yah. And then inhale for 3 seconds, Yah. And then we're going to exhale for 6 seconds, Way. And we're going to practice it just for maybe 30 seconds here. So closing your eyes, I want you to first scan your body, head to toe. Where am I holding tension? Tension in my shoulders, in my gut, my leg. Where am I holding tension? And just notice it. We're not solving it. We're simply noticing it. And now let's breathe in. And you can say out loud or you can say in your head, Yah, 3 seconds. And Way, 6 seconds. Pausing. And then Yah. And Way. And continue another 3 more on your own. Yah in for 3, Way out for 6. One more. And as you exhale, I want you to pause, and then I want you to scan your body again from head to toe. Noticing where the tension is. And when you're ready, take a deep breath, and then slowly come back to the space. Couple observations there. What did you notice about breathing? Grounding. Okay. Yeah. Peaceful, grounding. It grounds us to the moment we're in, and our breath is always with us. So it's an easy practice to simply follow your breath. And again, when we can ground ourselves from one moment to the next moment, our window of tolerance is going to increase. Staying. Okay. Two more. This is another way specifically to ground yourself. Okay? And the reason that grounding is so important is because in the present nanosecond, anxiety and depression don't exist in this present second. They exist a nanosecond on either side. But in that present nanosecond, it doesn't exist. So if we can ground ourselves in the here and now, again, we can live out of peace, freedom, contentment. Our window will get bigger. So, first of all, this is gonna be loud, but you're gonna be loud out loud. I want you to scan your body. When I say scan your body, just from the head to the toe, just scan your body and notice what you notice. Like I often notice that my shoulders are attached to my ears. So notice, or, oh, something's in my gut. There's tension there. And then I want you to name out loud. Again, you can do it out loud or in your head. Out loud's a little more powerful, and I realize everybody's gonna be talking over everybody, but name 5 things that you can see right now. So go ahead. Table. Okay? 4 things that you can touch and touch them, like feel them. Three things you can hear. Two things you can smell. And one thing you can taste. Now, repeat the scan, head to toe. And what do you notice? What do you notice? Alert. More alert? Anything else? More relaxed. Okay, alert and relaxed. Both of those are because you're grounded in the here and now. And so much of anxiety is caused by all this futuristic thinking that's way out here. And so much of depression is caused about sitting in the past, the pain, stuck there. So it's in the here and now. Again, another way to expand that window. I'm going to do one last one, and then we will wrap up and give you time to talk in your groups and time to ask any questions. This next one, if I were to say, what are the 2 things that we're most stuck in? I would say anxiety and shame, as we've talked about. And if you were to ask me, okay, Heather, what are the 2 things that you believe most get us out of that? Well, it would be living in the window of tolerance, but what gets us out of that is awareness, which is what all these have been, right? Container and breath and grounding, and compassion. Compassion. So I want to talk a moment about compassion. And again, in general, I think we women are really pretty good at being compassionate with others and pretty crappy at being compassionate with ourselves. So what is self-compassion? It's wanting health and well-being for oneself. This doesn't mean I don't want it for you too, but it's wanting health and well-being for oneself. And it doesn't mean that my problems are more important than yours. It means I simply can recognize and sit and take care of my own problems as well. When we choose compassion, our negative self-judgment is replaced by feelings of peace and acceptance. So there are a zillion reasons why people say, I can't be compassionate. It's selfish is probably number one. I would argue it's not selfish, it's self-aware and self-care. When we take care of ourselves, again, going back to Eldridge's quote, we treat our own heart the same way we treat others. So when we can be compassionate and see ourselves, then we can live in greater emotional health and greater freedom. Compassion is the antidote to suffering. So when we're in shame or we're in perfection and we're experiencing sadness and anger, we're suffering. Compassion is the antidote to suffering. And I appreciated this quote, is the kind of compulsive concern with I, me, mine isn't the same as loving ourselves. That's that victim, so-centered, focused on self. Loving ourselves points us to capacities of resilience, compassion, and understanding that are a part of being alive. When we can be aware of ourselves, accept ourselves, and be compassionate with ourselves, we are going to live more resilient from a place of greater resilience, which is another way of saying in that window. So I want to practice compassion for a minute with you here. And I want you to just put both of your hands over your heart like this. And again, we're going to close our eyes. And I want you to feel the weight and warmth of your hands, and I want you to feel the beating of your own heart. And allow yourself to connect to yourself, to see yourself here. And then I want you to let these words echo in your head. I am safe. I am loved. I am healthy. I can live life with ease. I am safe. I am loved. I am healthy. I can live life with ease. Allow yourself to receive compassion. Compassion is the antidote to suffering. And one last time, as you take a deep breath, I am safe, I am loved, I am healthy, I can live life with ease. Feeling that connection between you and you. When you're ready, take another deep breath and then slowly come back to this space. What did you notice there? A relief. Yeah. Calm. Okay. Yeah. How shallow our breathing is. Yeah. It's okay. Again, relief, calmness. So to just step back, we looked at this whole notion of what keeps us stuck. We've talked about anxiety, which is going to affect a third of us in a big way and affects all of us at some level. And that shame, that notion of I'm not good enough, I'm not enough, underrides that. We looked at what happens neurologically when we live out of hyper arousal and hypo, both of what shame and anxiety would connect to. And we looked at this window that says, I can increase this window, no matter how tiny my window is, I can increase it. I can live out of this place of peace and contentment and freedom. And then we looked at 4 different tools that allow us to begin practicing it. And the key word is practice here. It's like going to the gym and lifting weights. The practice is what's going to increase the window of tolerance. Now, all of this has come from a psychological perspective, and in 1 minute, I'm going to throw up a theological perspective, and then I'm going to hand it back to Marianne. She doesn't know this, but to carry forth back into Bible studies and church, etc., because I know that we are not, that we are integrated. We are physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual beings. And as someone that follows Christ, I know that he is the ultimate counselor. He is the ultimate place that is the window of tolerance, the peace. So I want to share this with you, and you can see what you think about it. I believe God has 3 offers, many more, but based on what we talked about today, we talked about shame, and God says, I offer you grace. You're enough. I made you complete. I made you to be enough. Okay? And then the window of tolerance. God says, I give you my Holy Spirit, and you connect to my Holy Spirit, and I give you the fruits of the Spirit, right? And joy, peace, love, etc. So here's what he would offer up. In addition to containment and breathing and self-compassion and grounding, he would offer up, I've got the Holy Spirit, and when you connect to me, you're going to get that sense of peace and groundedness. And then with regards to self-compassion, which again is important to give ourselves, he says, I love you just as you are forever and always, and my love is patient, and my love is kind. So in my way of thinking, when we get to combine psychology and theology, we get like the full meal deal here, right? Yeah. And again, as I started, I hope you have a zillion questions that are reverberating in your head that you're going to sit with and you're going to talk to people with. And I hope you had some experiential happening here today that got you out of your head and into your body. And I hope that you have some new level of awareness of who God made you to be and where you're at right now. It has been a superb pleasure, and I would stay all day and chat with you all, but my time is way up, and it's time for you all to get to connect to each other. So here are some questions. You do not need to follow these questions, but there's some questions to get the conversation started. And then a couple of my favorite quotes here. Inner peace begins the moment I choose not to allow another person or event to control my emotions. That's one. And then second, you're not required to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. So with that, enjoy. Oh, thank you.